Hello there, Chris here from Becker's Models, and I've got a bit of a surprise build. It's already done and finished. There we go. Bandai 148 scale X-Wing. Right, I'm going to do a Partisan X-Wing. This is a fantastic kit. It's one of the best kits that Bandai's ever made, and I was able to pick this up for a song. The previous builder had just literally cut the pieces off, didn't even clean up the nubs, threw it together, and he sold it to me with all the spare parts for it, you know, with the canopy and the landing gear and so forth. Now, I have built one of these before. Here it is here on its stand, and it is actually fully motorized. I've got to put some batteries in there, but the wings move and it does make pew pew sound. So it's pretty much a toy, as people say, but no, it's not. It's actually a very well engineered and beautifully put together model kit. If I can just get the stand off. So here it is here, painted up in red 5 colors and markings, and it's an amazing kit because you can actually paint and weather the pieces separately and then just snap fit them together at the end. So I'm going to do something similar with the with this one. Now, there's only 2 issues with this particular kit. You can probably see from this end some of these barrels are a little bit bent, and I'll just gently take this over because it's a bit fragile. It's missing this panel here at the bottom, this flat piece, which is super simple to make out of sheet styrene. Anyway, the color markings don't match here. There's no red markings on the Partisan. If you're not familiar with the Partisan, it's Saw Gerrara's squadron. I think they're called the Cavern Angels. You've seen them in Rogue One and just recently in Andor. So I'm loving Andor, loving that show. So I really want to do something from that show. And let's get started on this fellow. It's a very simple paint job, but a very detailed weathering job. The first thing I need to do is disassemble this, clean up all the parts, make sure it's all fitting together well, which it will because it's Bandai. It does have all the moving parts and LEDs inside, which I don't really need because I'm going to be doing this for a change, just like this. Wheels down. Yeah, hey, why not? Wheels down, canopy open, no pilot. I'll take the pilot out. I'll just put some seatbelts in or something. I may make a little base for it, I may not. But yeah, we'll see how we go. After about an hour of disassembly and then going through each part and cleaning off sprue nubs like we got here on the nose, just a careful scrape of the knife and just a little bit of action with a sanding stick, I've got all the parts nicely cleaned up. I did have one casualty, however, and that was one of the fuselage parts just wouldn't come off, and of course it snapped in half. Just a clean break. It's not a problem to fix. Because a lot of those fuselage parts over here that go for not the really nose parts, I'm actually going to glue them all together instead of having them snap fit because it's going to be mainly one color or one underlying color. So yeah, so what I'm going to now is start to do assembly, so sub-assembly. So we got the fuselage, got the cockpit over here. Here's the motor unit, which you still require for the wing functions, but I'll put these LEDs away, and yeah, and I've managed to almost straighten up these barrels. So just do a little bit more bending, a bit more heating up, and I can get away to actually putting it together. Before I start painting the wings, I have to make this new infill piece. Here's the piece from my other 148 scale X-Wing. You can see it weathered up. I've just popped out and never glued it in, so I've just made a trace on this piece of plastic card here. I've used this long straight edge to get this nice one correct, and I'll just get out my trusty Tamiya scribing tool and try to do some straight lines. Of course, it always takes more than one try. That's my second go of doing it. I just simply cut a piece there and inserted it in. So made that one piece and just added a little greebly piece there, scribed in the panel lines, and we're good to go. Before I go ahead and paint up the cockpit, I need to modify the seat. So the seat was engineered to have the pilot sitting there, and the pilot snicked into the back of the seat with this this big slot. So I need to cut that out. Best way to do it is just get onto the sprue cutters and get it down to a little nib, and then I'll use this wonderful House-Sagoa tri-tool, this little chisel here. Instead of chiseling my own hand, I'll try to get in there, and I might take a little bit more off, but anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this down and then fill in the bits, because that's not going to, it's going to be a bit hard to get in there and fix that, and just put a little bit of texture on those cushions at the back. There we go, it's starting to go there. Okay, and just put a little bit of texture and things there, and that'll pretty much complete it. And then I'll see, I might have some spare seat belts somewhere around, but yeah, I'll prime this, and I've already primed up the cockpit. So I'm just going to paint the base color, which is a very, very dark gray, and then start to paint the details. Forgot to turn the camera on when I was spraying this, but anyway, it's down. Bit of dark slate grey. I wanted a little bit of that green to come through, because I'm going to put some contrasting colours in that cockpit, and with that red-brown primer, it's quite a warm colour. Maybe I should have gone a bit colder. With a little bit of spare paint, I touched up the ends of these cannons, because I realised this is another part of the kit that requires a bit of putty, because those pieces come together and they should be one piece. So I'm going to just go over that with a little bit of Mr. Surfacer and clean them all up. But let's go over to the other bench where I can hand paint these, and I probably will get my head in the shot every time I do it. So I might just show you the paints I'm going to use and a few reference photos I'll chuck in the corner. Time to paint the cockpit, and like I said, I probably won't be able to do this on camera because my head always gets in the way. I need to use a loupe. My eyesight is going worse and worse as I get older, and I'll use a couple of my lovely Winsor Newton brushes. So I'll put some reference photos up and quickly discuss what I need to do here. So there's quite a lot going on in the cockpit. There's a few pipes. These major pipes on either side need to be painted in. Some of the dials here on the sides, but it's mainly this front section here. Let's see if I can zoom in, where there's a lot of paneling going on, so I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to use various blacks and dark greys to sort of highlight that there are actual different panels, particularly on the front there as well. And there's lots of buttons with lots of different colors that ILM, Lucasfilm, whoever have put in, so that's why I need all these nice pretty colors and even a bit of chrome silver. So let's get to it. Hopefully I can jump forward. While I've got you here, I've fixed that seat. See that? I've just put a little bit of Mr. Surfacer texture on the seat. I've done a dirty paint job on there just to make sure it all looks all right. I will properly paint that as well, probably with an airbrush. So I've got the cockpit done. I've put a few highlights there on the seat, and I've dry brushed a few of the panels there just to let them come out a bit more, and I think it's working effectively enough. You can also tell that I've put the frames around here, and what I've had to do, because this canopy is going to be open, I didn't realise these have to be fully painted, so I've had to prime these separately and paint them. So they were done in basically just US Navy white. I might change that up with some oils or something later, but what I want to do is I just want to skip ahead and show you the method I'm going to use pretty much for all the white surfaces over the whole ship. So what I'm doing is I'm using my stencil over the red-brown primer level, and I'm doing underpainting. So I'm just using the stencil to slowly build up. You can see this sort of mottled effect, okay? Using a variety of light gold grey and the navy white. These are very dirty sort of whites. And this is the stage on this side. You can see where I've just started to lay down the gull grey, so that gull grey should be called dull grey. It really does dull the US Navy white, which has a little bit of yellow in it, which is good because that gives us sort of the warm tone that I'm looking for. And then as we go across here, what I've done is 2 layers of the underpainting, and then I've misted on the US Navy white. So hopefully I'm capturing that, and then I'm hitting some of the details with just a straight US Navy white. Now that's going to be completely hidden because the wing's going to be closed, so this is going to have another wing on top. You won't see it, but a good area to practice to see if I'm getting the right effect I want. I've done some streaking, I've done some subtle shading, but this will all be enhanced on the top side where you can see it. I'll just leave it as this here with oil work, dry brushing, and some panel line washes. So I think I'm on the way with that. So back to the cockpit, what I need to do is I just need to, it's not closing quite right. I've glued this entire subsection together as one. In fact, I've even removed all the posts so they won't be under any tension, but there is definitely a bit of give in there. See that? See, it still needs to come together a bit more. I might try disassembling one more time, but I'm not 100% happy with the gaps there. See that gap there? So I might get the old clampy Roonies out, get the clamps out and clamp that nice and tight. And then mask these areas off that I've painted and prime the fuselage and get really stuck into this painting. So I've primed the fuselage, and as you can see from these bits of putty sticking out, there were a few more construction faults that I didn't find until the primer was down, and that's an important part of putting down primer even on so-called snap together kits. What had happened was the previous owner, he was a bit too boisterous in removing some of the nub marks, or maybe I was and I snapped them, I can't remember, but there were quite a few bits that stuck out, so I've given them a go with some Bondo and sanded that back. So I need to respray those areas, canopy's masked, so I'll do that before I move on to the next thing, and that's completing these wings. So there's the wings. I've done the first layer of the marbling of the tank grey down for the blacks, but I need to do whites first because it's a lot easier, as I found doing this particular wing. This is my practice wing that's now complete, the underside, so this won't be seen technically, it'll be all closed up, you'll only see that bit there. But yeah, I've put the, I'm pretty happy with the way that black's come out. I've gone a little bit further than what I probably will do on the other ones. And so now I need to get all the white done. So I've got the first layer of white down on the fuselage, and I've got a couple of layers down on those wings. That was US Navy white, so now I'm going to change it up a little bit with some insignia white and some navy light gold grey to bring up the underpainting. And yeah, so you can see the pattern that I've done there. It was hard to get some clear reference photos of exactly what sort of pattern is on the fuselage. It looks like a cutback, sort of a wedge here and there, and so I'm just going to overspray it, and then, you know, if I'll mask it with the black afterwards. Always do light first, then dark later. So let's go ahead with the next layer of lights, and then I can of whites, and then I can get into the blacks. So the wings are done. So now I want to put down the final whites here on the fuselage. Hopefully you can see that there's quite a lot of variation and mottling and streaking that I've put in there. I don't know how much that's going to stay there. I've had this method described as driving all the way around the block to end up next door to your house. Because yeah, a lot of this can be done in post painting with oil work and so forth, and that's what I'm going to try to do. But it's fun nonetheless to try to do this. So I've got some clear dope linen, the MRP stuff in here, so I'm just going to start very slowly building it up. So I'm trying to preserve the colours. I can see the gull grey in there, which has got a very yellow, almost green sort of tone. But I sort of have to knock back the marbling. So I'm concentrating on that upper panel first. I might just hit freehand using this little greebly that's stuck out. There we go. I'm barely applying any paint here, it's just going down very thin. And I'm sort of filling in the holes. That's where I had that crack in that piece, see that? I'm going to keep that. So I'm almost there with these panels. I'm going to try to put in a little bit more streaking. And I'm just going in, that was a bit too thick, that one, but these subsequent ones, just trying to put in some vertical parts there. So let's just move on, see how there's a bit of a difference there. It's sort of what I want, it's got a sort of a yellowy hue to it. I'm just going to do, I think, one more pass, so do a broad pass, and hopefully that'll bring it up to how I want it. But it's still got that underlying character of being fairly worn. Well, I don't know if I've got the right white there, but I think it's close enough for what I'm looking for. So before I button this up, I'm going to, and mask it and get ready to put the blacks down, I am going to show you two things. First of all, I'm going to try to make some highlight. No, wrong bottle. Where's the right bottle? I've put it away. It's the white, straight white MRP. I've already put it back in the cabinet. I'm just going to hit some of these highlights with just straight white and see what happens. But what I've done on the other side here, and I might need to zoom in for you to notice, but I've already started to do some chipping. Yes, you can see how there's a couple of flaws in the paintwork there. Well, I've just used one of these Infinity 1500 sanding sponges, and I'm just very slowly sanding back, particularly when you get to these greeblies, these little pieces of plastic that stick out. In fact, I think I have to redo these because I've oversprayed them a couple of times. So see that? I'm just very lightly just bringing them back, and you get some nice chips on the side. Okay, so it's not a lot of work just to do that. See that? And across that edge there, and I think I'll do some where the landing gear goes. So people who say, you know, the way you approach a build is you got to assemble it, prime it, then paint it, and then start the weathering. I mean, I used to say the same. Well, you can do your weathering while you're doing your painting. Okay, so on this side, I haven't done this side yet. I'll show you here. I might zoom in just to show you what I'm trying to do. All right, so I'm just very lightly with the 1500, and I'm just sort of taking off the edge of the paint around these little hatches and things, little greeblies. So it's minute, but it all adds up, okay? And that's what I'm sort of after. So there's a few scratches already done on the top here. Got some in there. I did notice on the reference photos these torpedo tubes do get scratched out a lot, so I'll just hit the edge and also along this edge here. So I'm just going to go around and do that, and particularly and also on the canopy. Whereas the canopy, this is not, the canopy that's on here is the old one. I've just done that to cover the whole cockpit so it doesn't get painted on. So that's the one I've actually done. And then this one I'm going to, there we go, see it's just that light little bit of abrasion and you get the nice sort of effects. So I don't think that you have to use one method for every build. You have to use hairspray chipping, or you have to use masking and so forth. Liquid mask, I'm using liquid mask in another Star Wars project that I'll share with you in the future. But yeah, this is working well. So I'm just going to hit the highlights and then mask this off and then do the black. And the second thing I wanted to tell you is I remember how I used to paint Zeros, Japanese Zeros, Mitsubishi Zero, one of the best fighter of the first couple of years of the Pacific War. And that's to use red underneath the black. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to enhance some of these brown red bits with some straight red. And that should make the black pop a bit more, because the experiments I've done so far with just using some greys and some sort of other NATO black colors, and it's not really coming out the way I want, and I'm having to do a lot of post shading. So we'll just see how we go putting down the red, because the benefit of that is if I don't like it, I can just spray over it or respray it. And I've resprayed this a few times, this whole kit. I mean, this is one of the joys of painting, is you just get to experiment and try new things. And I mean, I know nothing about color. I'm a finance guy, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not an artist by any stretch. I'd love to learn how to paint, but one of these days. All right, enough waffling from the backer. Let's get moving on to the blacks. I've masked up all the parts, and I've basically painted all the wings in their blackness. Okay, you can see that there. It's quite a worn sort of look, and can you see how there's a fair bit of red in there? So what I've done is a little trick I've taken when I used to paint the nearly black cowl on Japanese Zeros, is you pre-show them with a bit of red. So I've done that with the marking red from MRP, and that's an inner one that I've gone a little bit heavier on. And here's an upper one, so that's the right upper wing, and so the cannon has got that more of a rust sort of effect, which after I do some dry brushing and some other weathering, that's going to come out really nice and worn. So you can see it's given a bit of character to that black. I'll show you what it looks like, because this is the last eighth of a wing I need to do. So that's what all the pre-shading underneath and mottling looks like. It's pretty dirty, nasty stuff, but that eventually will turn into that. So I've just got that to do. I've got some landing gear to do, and of course I've I'll just zoom out here. I've got the fuselage is all masked up. I forgot 2 white bits here next to this maintenance slot or whatever this is, where the droid sits. So I've got. What I'll do is I'll paint the black, then I'll mask, then I'll do the white, then I'll take it off. So that's all masked up, ready to do the black, and finally get this thing painted. There is a few things I need to do later, but I'm not going to do that in this video. That's just some very small details that'll come in the next one. So I might leave the video on and I'll show you how I blend this. So the blend I'm using is not quite black. It's Nodo black with a little bit of tank grey, so it's still fairly blacky. But okay, so what I need to do is basically fill in the lines. So I'm just very carefully getting rid of that undercoat that's there. Try it from this direction as well. Oop, we've got a sneaky bit of white there in the corner. Just get rid of that. Okay, so I just got to make sure I've got a good demarcation on that strip there, so just do that. I can tell this is the piece that I made. This is that missing piece, you remember? So it's starting to get there. It's a bit glossy, but see if you can get a good angle there. So I'm just misting this on. And what I've been doing throughout this whole paint job is, let's see if I can capture this on this one, is streaking. So there's streaks, so they will stay there. If I don't overdo it too much. Maybe they're still there, they're still subtle. Alright, a bit more. You can see how that red's really coming through. Alright, I'm halfway there. I've got this side nearly done. As you can see down the center line there, I've left quite a bit of red underneath because that'll be really good for some dust and oil weathering, but I really like the black that's coming along there, along the fuselage sides. And you contrast that with just what I've underlaid there on the other side. So need to get that done, and then just paint up the all the undercarriage gear just happens to be in the black bits, which is good, so that'll be all black, and the cannons, and then that's the main painting done. And I've just got to fill in this bit as well. So there we have it, the bulk of the painting is done. I'll just put this together for you. So I've still got a couple of the cannons to paint, and I've made a boo-boo. I'll just zoom in here. The wrong way. There we go. Okay, I haven't painted the back of these just in here where the engines go. I thought that was had a blank off plate. I couldn't remember. So, and I also haven't painted the see those white things there, those housings, they should be painted as well. So I need to paint them black. Easy enough. Everything seems to be fitting okay. If I get the landing gear on, see that. So I haven't painted up the landing gear because what I want to do in the next series is I'm actually going to add a bit more detail to them after having a look. They need some added bolts to, you know, where the obvious hinges are, and also some brake lines, hydraulic lines and so forth. And if I can just get this in, there we go. So let's get him wheels down like that. It's starting to look pretty good there. pretty happy with the way the colours have come out. There's a lot of variety. Maybe you can't see them on the camera, but I can see them in the whites and the blacks. You can really see the contrast. Again, I need to fix, there's a white line here around this housing I need to put in, and I need to make this more of a metal effect, and also on the back as well on this pad. But yeah, overall that's a pretty good place to stop now. So the major painting is done. Next video is going to be all about the weathering. How can I make this look beaten up? And as I said before, I even have done some weathering within the paint job by sanding back some of the features, making some chipping and some wear. And I've just noticed some of these barrels are still a little bit bent, still need a bit more pressing around. I haven't found many faults. There's a few little touch-ups I've got to do, but mainly I just need to finish painting up those areas in there. So I'll do that off screen. And here's the canopy, the proper canopy. I used another one for the so it's going to be posed like that, and it's going to have a few other things in it. Let me get them right now. Gonk droid. So I've got a gonk droid, so he's going to be part of, yes, I am going to make a base for this. And not only have we got a gonk droid, but we've also got 2 tubes. Okay, one of the lead partisans under Saw. He's 2IC, I think he is. So that's a 3D print. It's a gaming scale, about 1/45 or 1/47 scale or something, close enough. So he's going to be there, and I've also got some supplies and some other parts here that I've had 3D printed. So yeah, so either in part 2 or part 3, I'm going to put these all together, and we're going to make a base of operations for the Partisan X-Wing. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that informative and enjoying, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.